So, Kim Freitas. Kim, are you here?
Yeah.
We're going to become blood brothers.
Yeah.
And please, to the press and to everyone else, I don't intend to stick myself 300 times because it wouldn't prove anything anyway. Oh, and might I say that a Dr. Gottlieb, who achieved fame for being the doctor that noted the first 4 or 5 cases of AIDS, who said to me on a radio broadcast the other night, he would believe me if I took a liter of blood. That's a transfusion of blood. And I said, you know, you must be mad. What is that going to prove? If you need a liter of blood to get AIDS, then nobody's going to get AIDS.
That's right. Yeah.
In any case, well, I got to do myself first, and then
All
I have
right.
to do you. Here, but let me do your finger, okay? I mean, I got to do you first, right?
All right.
Excuse me. Then I'm going to do me. Excuse me, I had that backwards. All right. Wait a minute. Got to find. This is a heck of a time to lose my needle. There we go. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a typical butterfly needle set. If somebody has a scissor, it'll help. No, I got it. Okay. It's sterile. And usually we use it to take blood by sticking this in, and then we can inject things also. So, let's do that. We got this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to... let me put my glasses on, okay?
Good.
I think you'd rather I do that. I got to tell you a cute little story. Shortly after my son was born many years ago, he's now 40, he got some kind of an infection or whatnot, and I spoke to the pediatrician at the hospital. I was an intern at the time, and he said, go home and give him a shot of penicillin. So I took the syringe and everything home, and my wife held Bruce over her shoulder, and I grabbed his little bottom cheek, and I go like this, and I stuck it right into my thumb, so.
Careful.
You can tell I don't like doing this, never have. Okay. Now we want to get a lot of blood. There we go. Okay? There we go. Now I'm wiping this needle thoroughly in this blood. And I say to my friends Fauci and Gottlieb and Galpin and Gallo and all the rest of those criminals, all right, that this is for the sake of humanity and no other reason.
Oh, whoa, whoa. Thanks.
And believe me, it hurts.
You can move it along.
And this is in the hope that it'll save the lives of millions of individuals who will die because of the greatest lie ever told.
Thank you.
Get
Thank
off
you.
the drugs.
Thank you. Get off drugs is right. Get off drugs. Now, I will be happy to take questions from the press or from anyone for that matter to clarify in your minds if there's any doubt whatsoever. Go ahead.
You said that AIDS is not an epidemic, it's an endemic circumstance caused by a variety of factors, including malnutrition and drug use. How then can you explain the years of potential life loss in the 250,000 plus people who have died of AIDS, according to CDC definition, where drug use has been going on for centuries, and suddenly we're losing people in their 20s and 30s because I'm not sure what you're...
Okay. That's an excellent question, really. And you're using your head. That's the kind of question should have been asked of Gallo at the very beginning. And by the way, you said 20s and 30s. Our healthiest people. Isn't it strange? You got a disease, the first disease in the history of mankind, that affects our healthiest? But what happened in the 60s? The drug culture began. What happened in the 70s? It heated up. At the end of the 70s, the gays came out of the closet and became an identifiable group. Now, I'll ask you, in a sense, a redundant question, but yeah, I think it'll get the point across. I'm going to name 5 of 30 diseases. Tuberculosis, a new disease. Lymphoma, Oh, that's a new disease too. Leukemia. Oh, yes, that's a very new disease too. Pneumocystis pneumonia, another new disease, but lesser known. And Kaposi sarcoma, another new disease? No. These diseases and the other 25 have always been around. It's real easy. It's real simple to create an epidemic. You simply take a bunch of diseases and put them under one heading and then claim that one virus is responsible for it. Well, that's nonsense. First of all, let me offer the proof. The reason it appeared, which I think is the essence of your question, as though it were some new epidemic coming on, is because it appeared in a select population, the gay population. But it only is appearing in gays who are on drugs. Only. And especially. And substance abuse, right. And remember, by the way, too, that alcohol is a drug. And remember, these individuals, many of them, extremely promiscuous, would get one venereal disease after another, and they'd be taking antibiotics for these diseases all year long. And it's a matter of medical fact that antibiotics are immune suppressive. Now, let me offer one very important bit of investigative reporting for you. It was reported in the newspapers a couple of years ago that this HIV was found in blood that had been preserved in laboratories in the 1940s. They went back and looked at some of these samples. They found HIV, which, by the way, has been around certainly for thousands of years. But let's just use that one example. If we had HIV in the population in the 1940s, and we had homosexuals in the 1940s, and by the way, according to Kinsey, 10 to 15% of the heterosexual population preferred anal intercourse, where in the world was your epidemic? It wasn't suitable for a scoundrel like Robert Gallo in the 1940s. He wasn't old enough, or maybe he was born just about that time, for somebody to come along and to pull off a scam of this magnitude. And now they're caught up in a maelstrom. Now if the truth gets out, yes, it will deal a blow to the credibility of the NIH and the CDC and the FDA and the AMA, and my God, it is sorely needed. That blow is necessary to clean up the act.
But then wouldn't habitual lifetime drug users all eventually come down with a syndrome that could be attributable to AIDS?
Absolutely. In fact, these people, that is true. No, on the contrary. Remember, it's dose related. So it depends upon how many drugs you're using and how much of them over how long a period of time. Now, if you overdose, you never get to that point. Yes.
Couldn't the combination of lifestyle practices, of microbial, the best place for microbes are dark, wet places. Aren't bathhouses an excellent place to increase the exponential representation of microbes from around the world? If men who have had sex with 1,000 other men through the year have contact with those same men who themselves are very similar, do you think that that adds an incredible amount of immune suppression that is not suffered by the rest of the population who does drugs or those other things? Do you think that that has...
Well, I don't know. You see, the Romans and the Greeks had bathhouses, and there's no evidence that pardon me?
Not with ecstasy, MDA, poppers, and all the things that were going on.
I agree that MDA and all the rest of these drugs are causing immune suppression. Now, I don't believe that sex itself causes immune suppression, but I do believe that recurring venereal disease will cause immune suppression. But the simple fact is that the virus has nothing to do with it. And that's the important thing. That I am certainly for people having a healthy lifestyle. Absolutely. But let's not get into the idea that this is, again, a contagious disease. You cannot give AIDS to anyone, and you cannot get AIDS from anyone. Yes, Michael Elner.
Would you consider the intense chronic psychological terrorism surrounding HIV and AIDS to be a major cause of what's called immune deficiency?
22 years ago, I urinated pure blood without pain. I knew immediately what the diagnosis was. It was bladder cancer. I cannot fully describe what I felt at that moment. It is unbelievable. It's like taking a crash dive into the depths of anonymity, total isolation, fear, and panic. And all the faith in God, or whatever faith you may have, cannot handle that at that moment. When you start to get your wits together, and if you use your intelligence and then your faith, yes, spirit and mind are wonderful things. What you're saying is true. It's a sentence of death for most people. And immediately, their body metabolism goes into negative phases. Everything becomes destructive. This is modern medical voodoo. If a doctor tells you you are going to die, I'm willing to bet you're going to die. I'll be the first one to put money on the line and say, the chances are you're going to beat the statistics. You will die because you've been told so. This is American voodoo. I'll get back to you, but let me take someone else.
Yes, Dr. Willner, I really appreciate what you're doing. I've been out here trying to inform people about this disinformation for a number of years now. Robert Gallo, who is a proven medical fraud and a multimillionaire marketing a test, the AMA itself, in its own medical journals in the 80s, have said that these tests are bad science. The microbiologists have said in their own medical texts that this is bad science. These tests do not work. The hematologists have said that this is false. These tests. They say that they have used ozone to inactivate HIV, which HIV, if it's a virus, it's a template or a pattern. So what can it do? I mean, these are just basic medical facts. How is it that this has gotten by the entire population? And the media is pushing this lie. Arthur Ashe, for example, was on 30 pills a day the 3 months before he succumbed, including AZT. How is that not iatrogenics? And how is it that the medical profession can murder 1 million people a year, according to their own study, the Yale New Haven study that came out this year? They admit to killing 1 million people a year. Why aren't they on trial? That's my question.
By the way, I thank you for your comments, and I'd love to have a copy of that study and some of the information you talked about. I really would, because I've been going around saying it's the number 3 cause of death is iatrogenic disease. And when I lecture before groups, I don't tell them what iatrogenic disease is. And I say to them, here we're worried about this so-called AIDS epidemic, and I don't believe that anybody should die. I think we should all live forever. But 12,000 a year, that's not an epidemic. 60,000 die from automobile accidents. 120,000, I've been saying, and I hope you're going to help me change, 120,000 die each year, they admit to, from iatrogenic disease, 500,000 from cancer, and 800,000 from heart disease. And I'm glad you're telling me it's 1 million, because I've been saying, they say it's number 3. I really believe in my heart it's number 1.
Deepak Chopra said
Sure.
the number 1 cause of...
I agree with him. Absolutely. Now, if we took the figure of 120,000 being killed by doctors, not malpractice, but as a normal course of everyday medicine, then doctors are 10 times more dangerous than HIV. Now you're telling me it's 100 times.
100 times.
Yeah, I want those figures really desperately.
In 1964,
Please.
They admitted 350,000 in 1960.
Well, I will be indebted, because that's powerful stuff, and I really, it's funny, you never know where the figures are going to go. But with medicine, anything's possible. Yes, pardon me?
Just the USA?
Just the USA.
Could you give some insight on how this mechanism works with pediatric AIDS?
Oh, okay, that is another good question. First of all, I challenge anybody, except there are always exceptions, and the exceptions are, of course, as we know, genetics, and children sometimes born under circumstances where we don't have all the facts, but I would say 99% or better of the individuals born with AIDS, if they actually have AIDS, the mother was a crack mother, was on drugs, no question about it, or had obvious incredible immune suppression for what other medical reasons, as they say.
I'm thinking of particular is Elizabeth Glazer, and her child got it from her. She had a blood transfusion before the birth of the first child. with tainted blood at Cedar Sinai. She then passed it on to her child.
She passed on HIV.
The story, yeah.
Okay, let's call things HIV, not AIDS.
Right.
Now what happened?
The child, after about 3 years, got very sick. They didn't know what the problem was.
Mhm.
The doctors said nobody knows what it is. They finally did an HIV test on the child, found out that she had it, and then she died. Ariel died.
But there's a gap there.
Where-
They found out she's HIV positive, and then she died. How much time and what was done in that period of time?
I can't answer that question.
I mean, listen, I was in the practice of general medicine for a lot of years. I had one of the largest practices in the state of Florida. And I can tell you, I treated a lot of kids over a period of time that got very ill in their first 3 years of life. You mean they had AIDS?
The test that they had.
Now, they did a test. I will guarantee you, I don't know what she died of, and I can't answer it, but I will tell you, these kids who are diagnosed as HIV, if they're given AZT, they will die of AIDS. Absolutely. Most of them will not die, just like most of the kids I treated did not die. But I had an occasional child that ended up with a meningitis and died. By the way, our current Miss America, who's deaf and dumb, got DPT. That's what made her deaf and dumb.
What is SIDS?
Yes, sudden infant death syndrome. Yes, we're going to try to finish one or two more of your questions.
You say
Then I'll
that
get you.
HIV is somewhere in this. You say that HIV itself is a harmless tissue. It's an innocuous retrovirus. Are you then saying that, as you said earlier about you don't know what safe sex is, that if I go back and report to my gay and lesbian readers, young gay men in particular, and there has been a rise in incidence among young gay men of HIV, again, with the tests that you don't believe in.
Right.
But,
Well, it means nothing. Until you give me one single document that proves HIV causes anything, it's meaningless.
okay, but what I need to, here's what I need
Yes.
to know.
Mm-hmm.
Is HIV sexually transmitted? Shall I go and report to these young gay men that they need not worry about
Okay.
practicing safe?
HIV, this harmless virus, can be sexually transmitted with incredible difficulty to the point where it becomes meaningless. All right?
That hasn't been proven either.
Right, and that hasn't been definitely proven. By the way, in one of the studies which they were presenting of 25 males where the semen was examined, who were HIV positive, they were able to demonstrate only in 2 out of 25 the virus, and they only found 1 in 1,000,000 cells. That is not disease. There's no way in the world, and especially with a virus